This review is gonna be awful. This review is gonna be awful. This review is gonna be great. This review is gonna be great. Hello there, interwebs, and welcome to my review of Star Wars The Bad Batch, Episode 3, Replacements. I was so confident going into that, and now I'm like, wait, is that the name of the episode? Ah, crap. Yes, Episode 3 is Replacements. I just looked it up. Look at me, starting off strong. Anyways, let's get into it. We're gonna go right into spoilers right up front, because it's really kind of hard to talk about this episode without spoilers, so we're gonna go right into it. This episode, for me, kind of had a weird, tonal dissonance problem with it. There was basically two storylines going on here. We had the Bad Batch on the crash-landed planet, sort of dealing with the situation, and kind of building up Omega as, part of the crew, part of the team. And that episode felt like it was a little bit more like I don't want to say a kid's show, but it had a little bit kind of this standard arc that we would see in a kid's show. It's like, I'm a child and I'm going to join the adults and I'm going to be part of the crew and I'm just as capable as all the adults here, sort of thing. But matching that with the other storyline this episode, which was Crosshair's bits over on Camino and the Empire stuff was very dark, which I really liked. And so it created this weird tonal dissonance for me that kind of really hurt the Bad Batch Omega storyline overall, because that side of the episode felt like it wanted to be this cute, fun thing. But I couldn't really ever take it as such because I'm like, no, this child should not be in this situation. Why are you letting her go out and put herself in danger? You are literally soldiers fighting a fascist empire. And then, you cut to soldiers literally murdering civilians in the other storyline. And so I just watching this, I'm like, I can't really invest in the kiddie type nature when it's juxtaposed with this other really dark storyline. And I'm not saying that you can't have this sort of childlike storyline in this setting. I mean, there's plenty of child's literature that's set in fascist societies and darker themes and darker stuff. But it just felt like that side of the episode was just trying to have this light, fluffy piece to it. That was a kid can go out and just have fun, and then juxtapose it with civilian murder. It felt tonally dissonant to me in a way that kind of, neither story was bad, but I think it really really hurt the other side of this story for me within this episode. I don't mind there being more childlike stories and more dark stories within my Star Wars fiction. I mean, look at Clone Wars. There was fun episodes that had Jar Jar Binks in them, oh gosh, but there were more fun comedic episodes of Clone Wars. Same with Rebels and Resistance, and then there were darker episodes of that show too, but mixing the two here really just didn't work, and I felt that did a disservice to the Bad Batch side of the storyline. Let's focus over there, because I'll talk about that, because I'll end on a positive, the Crosshair storyline that I actually really liked. So, talking about the Bad Batch section, a lot of stuff here I loved. Wrecker is still my favorite character overall. His bits, his little comedic bits and his asides are wonderful. The moment when they're crashing and he's like, oh, we're all gonna die. And then he looks over at Omega and says, oh, no, we're all going to live. That was absolutely hysterical. Wrecker, just hands down, easily my favorite character of the show. I don't even think that, I think I can just lay that down right here. Then the rest of the storyline, it kind of gave me that Empire Strikes Back vibe with the Millennium Falcon stuck and they were repairing it. They kind of were echoing that, no pun intended there, here with this little creature stealing the thing. It kind of weirded me out that they showed us the creature and then a few seconds later that the creature was apparently had the scary moment running across the view screen and Omega saw it, which was weird to me because I just saw that creature 2 seconds ago. You showed me it in full view, so I don't know why you're trying to play this horror movie moment for me. That felt a little bit strange. But getting into the meat of the story, it was that sort of standard oh, hey, the kid wants to be part of the adults, and it kind of just was very paint by numbers. There was no real resistance or any pushback or anything that really felt super character driven. There was the moment where Omega's I'm part of the crew too, right? And Hunter says, yeah, we'll make you part of the crew. And there was no, and then they just sort of went out and Hunter kind of tried to protect her, but Omega found herself and went on and did this thing. It was all very paint by numbers, and none of it really had a lot of stemming conflict between these characters. At the beginning of the episode, Hunter does try to overprotect Omega, but Omega doesn't seem to be bothered or even aware that he's doing that when he says oh, do you want her to have food? You're going to take away her food from her, and Wrecker sort of keeps it. It's that moment should have played Omega felt belittled and looked down upon because Hunter was overprotecting her. And then that would have made it better when she finally found her own agency later on the episode. But Omega just doesn't seem to really care. And so ultimately it just kind of felt like, all right, we're just going through the motions with this storyline. Overall, I really am just kind of disappointed with that side of things, because it really just felt like blah. And it kind of leaves me wondering what the purpose of Omega is going to be in this show going forward. I'm sure she's going to have a part to play in terms of the larger plot of the Kaminoans wanting to make a superior clone, as we learn in this episode. So I'm sure she's going to play some role in all of that. But in terms of like her emotional resonance and like what she's kind of here to do, I hope they have something else planned for her more than like she's gonna soften the heart of these soldier-like clone troopers. Because that, I've seen that a billion times before, and they're not really doing anything all that interesting as of yet to really make me feel invested in that. Like, there's a little bit of like Hunter and her kind of caring for each other, but I don't really fully buy that yet. Especially in this episode, it just feels so paint by numbers. So I'm a little bit concerned that with where they're going to go with Omega's character in terms of like emotional resonance, in terms of her relationship to these other characters. And I hope they do something new and different with her, other than just having her there to sort of prop up this superior clone thing that the Kaminoans are trying to do otherwise. So then she's just more of a plot device instead of an actual character in and of herself. And I like her character. I think she's adorable and cute, but I don't necessarily think she's doing anything different or unique or particularly interesting within this story so far. And this episode kind of started to highlight that problem for me, especially. It was a little bit reared its head last episode, but I'm really feeling it this episode. That being said, let's switch over to the other storyline that I thought really worked well for me, and that is everything going on with the clones on Kamino and Crosshair. All of this was really, really great. I love starting to see this idea of like how we went from clone troopers into stormtroopers and using more conscripted soldiers within the Empire, and sort of Tarkin and now this new guy Rampart sort of trying to say like, let's bring humans in. Let's bring people in who like are loyal to our cause because they want to be loyal to our cause, not because they're born and bred that way. I particularly like the scene where the elite squad, by the way, the elite squad looks really cool, where one of the members of the elite squad says like, I joined because, you know, I got food on the table, something the Republic never gave me. I got structure and I got food. Because that's something that like fascist societies offer people like that. They're like, you know, we can offer you structure, we can offer you stability, we can offer you a goal in life. And that is very appealing to people who join the military, who sort of follow these sort of like strong organizations like that. And so that worked really, really well for me. And I could see the appeal for that for someone like Tarkin. And so it's starting to explain why they would move away from the clone troopers, not to mention the cost of the clone troopers as well. So I really started to appreciate that side of the storyline. And I loved, you know, the sort of like subtle tension between Crosshair and the stormtroopers, and Crosshair, them pushing back against Crosshair is like, you're just a clone. You don't really have any like your own opinions or thoughts and everything like that. And then that moment where they defeat Saw Gerrera's camp and Crosshair shoots the civilians and shoots the soldiers, or forces them to shoot the civilians and shoots the soldier in front of them and shoots his own teammate because he's not following orders. That sort of mindset, that sort of like, I will follow orders and do really terrible things because that's what I was told to do. I'm just following orders. That idea, I mean, I shouldn't have to say why that is at all resonant with empires and fascist mentalities. That's just part of that comes with it. And so I really, really loved that storyline. I thought that worked so well, and I love seeing the horror that the stormtroopers sort of brought to this situation and Crosshair's mindset. I think the only negative that I really have in that entire storyline is I'm still disappointed that this is all coming from Crosshair's chip. I wish that this was just Crosshair's character, that Crosshair just was naturally someone who fit the more fascist mindset. It would have informed his character a lot more, because knowing that this is all his chip in his head, I'm just waiting for the, you know, several episodes down the line, I'm sure, after they have a big confrontation with him, where the Bad Batch captures him and gets rid of his chip, and he falls back into being friends with them because they broke his chip. And so it feels like all this stuff that I'm seeing isn't really me learning about Crosshair as a character. I'm just learning what this mind control stuff is doing to him. And I didn't necessarily care enough about him before this to really be invested in him doing darker stuff. So it's just like, okay, there's this guy doing darker stuff, but I'm not really investing in his character because I'm not meeting his character really. I'm meeting this mind control chip, and I'm not sad enough because I didn't know him beforehand. So that's the one negative I have on that storyline. But overall, I really, really like it. I just think that the chip thing is a detriment to his character. I do like it, however, that the chips are mentioned over in the Bad Batch side of the storyline when Tech brings up like, our chips are still in us. They could be used against us at some point, and I like that sort of seeding of possibly those chips being used down the line, and then wanting to disable them. We all know that Echo doesn't have a chip inside his head, and so that might lead into why Echo is so important to this group. Like, maybe they'll all get taken over and Echo will have to bring them back at some point, and him and Omega will have to bring them back at some point. I can definitely see that being an interesting emotional storyline going forward. So I'm liking that little seeding of story plot lines here. So yeah, I think overall that's my main thoughts on this episode. I think it was an okay episode. Kind of like one side of it was really, really great with a couple small caveats, and one side was okay, but not particularly wonderful and kind of paint by the numbers sort of storyline. And ultimately, so if you sort of average it out, I would say this is a good episode, but not particularly fantastic or amazing or all that memorable in the long run of things. So I'd love to hear all your thoughts on this episode of Star Wars The Bad Batch. Let me know down in the comments below what you thought. Did you like this episode more than I did? I'd love to hear all of that. Don't forget I have a Patreon where you can support me. You can also find me over on my main channel, Jessie Gender. If you are watching this video the day it comes out, I have a video going up at 11 a.m. Pacific time today about superhero films and revolutionaries, mainly focusing on Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier, depending on how you want to title it. I'm really excited about that video, so I'd love you to check it out. But beyond all of that, I hope that you, as always, live long and stay sexy, you dork.